Welcome. We bid you welcome. John Clauser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Dad, coming to you from my music corner of the world. And today, as we were recording this, yes, I am wearing my green for St. Patty's Day as we are recording this, which you won't see this till Wednesday. But my faithful co-captain on the Year of the Priest series, John the Music Nut. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, my friend. How are you? Welcome,
Ah,
Mike.
and from Grab a Stack of Rock, Mike Ladano. How you doing, my friend?
Doing great, my friend.
Ah,
How are
yes,
you?
There
he
you
has
go.
he has the he
I always
has
have a
his
stack.
he always has his stack of rock. I'll tell you what. Oh man, well, it's good to have you on today as we talk about, of course, mine's a little different looking, the Turbo album. We pick up where we left off a couple weeks ago from Defenders of the Faith. John rocking the cassette there. That is
That's right.
awesome. I think that was what I had first when I first got this album's cassette. So,
Hmm.
and I think mine looked like that. But anyway, this album is celebrating a birthday. Let's see. On the 21st, this was released March 21st, 1986. This is released, at least according to Wiki now, because it
That's right.
could be a little different. Recorded June 85 into February of 86 down in Compass Point, Nassau, Bahamas, and a little bit of Los Angeles at the record plant. So they get away from Ibiza Studios in Spain. They go to some warmer climate in the Bahamas, well known for Maiden, I believe, recorded a couple albums there as well.
They
Right.
did.
We have three singles. We have Turbo Lover, which was released in the UK in April of 86, Locked in May of 86, and Parental Guidance in November of 86. Um, Chart action. Let's knock this out real quick. Down in Australia, Peter Kerr's neck of the woods, number 56. Canada, up in Mike's territory here, number 37. The Dutch album charts 57, Finnish albums number 11, the German charts 28, Japanese albums number 22, Norwegian albums. Paul, how you doing, my buddy? Number 13, Swedish number 10, Swiss number 26, UK 33. Interesting for the UK with they're a British band, and of course the Billboard 200 number 17. Goes platinum in Canada, which is 100,000 copies. Goes platinum in the States. It takes a little while to get it there, but it goes there. Um, so yeah, we got some mixed reviews with this one. Yeah, but
True.
first, we want to turn it to Mike since this is his first time on this series. Give us your Priest story. What brought you to the table when it came to Judas Priest? And then we will let you kind of segue into your thoughts on Turbo.
Okay. Well, I won't spend too much time on my priest point of entry because we basically did that on last Friday's Grab a Stack of Rock show. Thank you so much, John, for participating. We had some great times.
And I
Um,
will link that show in the description.
yeah, perfect, because that really is the whole story there. I discovered heavy metal music in general on December 26th, 1984, with an album called Masters of Metal, Volume 2. And we talked about how that song "Run to the Hills" was it was really the turning point. It was the pivot point. But also on that album was "You've Got Another Thing Coming." So I would assume that was probably the very first time I heard Judas Priest, fell in love immediately. Um, from there, it was much music with the music videos. "You've Got Another Thing Coming," "Free Wheel Burnin'," "Love Bites," and soon it was going to be "Turbo Lover" and "Locked In" added to that collection. But that's where I was raised, on the Tom Alam, that duology of Screaming for Vengeance and Defenders of the Faith. That was my point of entry, so to speak. I didn't discover any music prior to that until Priest Live. But we'll get there. We'll get there on your show. Um, yeah, and Turbo came out right when I was finishing grade school and going into high school. It was a pivotal moment, and it was also a pivotal moment for Judas Priest, um, which again we'll get to. But that was my Priest origins, was that duology of Screaming and Defenders, and that's a pretty heavy entry point.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But that's essentially where I think both John and I kind of are the same boat there too, because that was
Yes.
essentially what we first heard as well. So
Mhm.
so good company.
No doubt.
All right.
See,
So yeah, go ahead and let's break into some turbo.
well, as soon as you said that the anniversary was coming, I'm like, yeah, that's right, because it reminds me of Easter of '86. And I remember going up to the cottage in March with a cassette tape, and that cassette tape had Turbo Lover and Locked In on it, which I'd recorded off of the music videos on television. And I remember being on that back porch with my badminton racket playing air guitar to Turbo Lover and Locked In. I loved where the band were headed. I mean, I was a rookie to Priest. I wasn't aware of Victim of Changes. I wasn't aware of the metal gods. I'd seen those album covers in friends' collections, but I didn't know any of those tunes. I know what I liked, and I was into a lot of hard rock, Twisted Sister, and Quiet Riot, those kind of bands. So to hear Judas Priest take it in a more commercial direction away from heavy metal, I was cool with this. It was like, oh, Priest are starting to sound a little bit more like some of these more famous bands, these more successful bands, commercially speaking. This is kind of cool. And the music video came out, and all of a sudden Rob Halford wasn't rocking the crew cut anymore. He had long, flowing, wavy, beautiful blonde hair. And I was like,
Yep.
for the first time in my life, I was like, I want to look like that guy. Judas Priest weren't the kind of band that I wanted to look like. Unlike other bands that I'm looking at on the television and being like, man, I wish I could look as cool as David Lee Roth or Edward Van Halen or some of these guys. Well, for the first time, I'm like, wow, I wish I could look cool like Rob Halford. He had that long leather trench coat with like patchwork colors all over it. It looked so cool. They were so hip in the 80s. Like, not, I'm sorry, they weren't necessarily hip in the 80s, but they were looking and sounding like what was hip in the 80s. And they were using these, I guess I'm going to call them samples, although I'm not sure if that's how it was actually done on the album. But, the dit, 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 that repeating thing that was so popular in pop music in the 80s. And a lot of what I call,
Sequencers.
oh, yes,
Sequencers.
yes. I'm
Yeah.
sure you're right. That was probably all sequencers where they're doing those dit, dit, dit kind of repeating bits. And there were other things there too, like what I call kung fu sounds, where you hear like, and that's like an actual like part of the song. They were doing all that stuff, but it was still rock. It was still metal. Something like "Rock You All Around the World" still rocked. Turbo Lover wasn't a wimpy song by any stretch. It was pretty tough sounding. Got a good relentless beat. I thought that those freaking sounds that opened the song were immense. They were really cool. I had no idea how they were done. Now we know they were done on a synthesizer with a guitar. But I thought maybe keyboards, maybe somebody's doing a keyboard lick. I don't know. Either way, either way, Turbo hit me with this change in direction at the exact right time that I needed to be hit with Turbo. I was going into high school and I thought this music sounds cool. And I bought the cassette right around the time I was heading into grade 9. And it was a very different cassette from John's. I'm jealous of his.
Hmm.
And songs like Parental Guidance just struck me as this should be a hit. I'm hearing this song and I'm like, if this didn't have the name Judas Priest in front of it, this would be on the radio and it would be a hit. Girls would love this song, that kind of thing. And I still maintain Parental Guidance, it would have been a big hit if it was released by any other band. That's my feeling on it. Yeah, so that's sort of my opening thoughts on Turbo. I was on board. I understood what people were saying when they said, oh, Priest have sold out, Priest have gone commercial, Priest have wimped out. I understood that, but I was of the attitude, so what? And as a kid, even I knew this wasn't going to be every album from here on in. This is what Judas Priest was going to sound like. We knew that. So I was just like, let's ride this wave. It sounds great to me.
Okay. All right. All right. John, you want to hit us with some of your go ahead. I'll let you take it.
Okay. When this came out, I I applauded they were trying something different because these guitar synthesizers were really way up in the mix. Iron Maiden would do this later with Somewhere in Time, but it wasn't as prevalent on that album as it is up here on Turbo. What I wasn't a fan of was the lyrics and the I thought they went a little too far as trying to get that younger generation in. But there is a lot I like on the album too. And this is how I felt at 15, because I've said on other shows, when I was 15, I would accept nearly anything. But there was stuff on here I just couldn't get into, and it was just too much for me. But a lot I like too. Turbo Lover, I like how this starts out. It's so atmospheric with those guitar synthesizers. You got that slow build. And then once those drums kick in, and it's a slow build right up into that chorus. The way that Rob is singing, you have to slow burn. I think it's really cool how the guitars jump in on the next verse. Then when Rob takes his voice to another level on as we and we'll race together, we will ride forever, and he goes in a higher octave, and then it goes into that chorus. I think that is great. Now, and the guitar solos throughout the album are very well done, very lyrical. You could sing a lot of the solos on this album. The guitar playing in this band's always been top notch. The song itself, I think, is very good. I do remember when they came out with the video back in the day. The video was pretty cool. And that was the second video here in the States. The first video was Locked In, the next track. And I always loved Locked In. This is my favorite song in the album. I thought this would be a hit. And the video was pretty comical. But I mean, but more, it was comical, but not like you're laughing at it so much, like those videos for Point of Entry, for example. But this song just kills. Yes, they're talking about, it's just a love song. Like I'm gonna, not a ballad, right? But you got me locked inside your love. It's just a really feel good, great song. It sounds a little different coming from Judas Priest, but I always loved it. I loved the switching of the solos throughout between Glenn and KK. They're doing this effortlessly, how these solos work really well in this song. So this song I have always loved. It's not one of my favorite Judas Priest songs, but it's my favorite song on the album. Private Property. Okay, we're going more into that same lyrical direction. This song I like too. I think it's got a soaring chorus, another slow build in there with the verses into the pre-chorus. I think it works very well. I don't think it's a great song, but I think it's pretty cool. It keeps up that same flavor that you have throughout this album. I never liked Parental Guidance. Never. I know why they wrote it. It was their response to the PMRC Listen Eat Me Alive on their Filthy 15. And it's just the lyrics I don't like at all. And it's not even that the song is poorly constructed, because it is well constructed. But I just never cared for this song. I never liked the chorus. It just never did anything for me. It's one of my least favorite songs by Judas Priest. Rock You All Around the World. When I was 15, I liked this a lot. Now, I listen to it, I'm like, it's a great riff and some of the worst lyrics I've ever heard. No one can hold us down. Just look around and see. This generation's getting up and breaking free. It's a nice bridge, but we're gonna rock. We're gonna roll. We're gonna shake you down. We're gonna lose control. You listen to this and like, I liked it at 15. I can't get into it now. Whereas a lot of the Judas Priest albums we have talked about before, I still get that same strong feeling, but I don't get it here. Let's go to side 2 on a cassette. Now, Out in the Cold, even though it's a love song, and I wouldn't like a love song when I was 15, I always dug this song. That nice long intro there, those guitar synthesizers are never more prominent than on this song, especially that intro. This would open the tour, the Fuel for Life tour, which we'll talk about later, which Fuel for Life tour, they were pushing the Turbo album. This is very well done. Now here, I think Rob sounds spectacular. Excuse me. Love the pre-chorus. Into that chorus. That chorus is so memorable. It is great. And then that breakdown into the solo, I think is killer. For a song that sounds a little commercial, I think this works like a charm. This is a very good song. And they brought this back out on tour in 2019 on the second leg of the Firepower tour. Wild Nights, Hot Crazy Days. I don't like Poison in my Judas Priest. That's what this sounds like to me. Now, Poison would have been putting out their first album, Look What the Cat Dragged In, on Enigma at that time. This sounds like something Poison would have done. I do not like this song at all. I think I dislike this more than Parental Guidance because I think that was at least constructed well. This is just Poison. Come on, it's hot tonight. Come on, that's right. No. When you listen to what Priest did before this, and then you listen to this, you're like, what happened to my Judas Priest? You know? Hot for Love. This I like. This is very drive. This is a very driving song. The guitar synthesizers are in there. You got the sequencers are on overdrive. You got the Hot for Love vocal in there in the middle. I like the pre-chorus on this. This is good.
Yeah.
Reckless. It's probably my favorite song next to Locked In. My faithful co-captain will go into this deeper as we have had a lot of discussions about this song off air. This is great. One of their better album closers, I would say, certainly. And probably one of the best songs they never played live. But this is just driving. It's just a great feel-good song. It should have been a single. I think this just works on all levels. It works. The guitar synths, I don't even know if they're pretty low in the mix if they're on here at all.
I don't think there's any at all on this one.
Okay. This is just a driving, great hard rock song of perseverance, makes you feel good. Very strong. Now, if you got the 30th anniversary edition, there's a bonus track called All Fired Up. Not your Fast Way All Fired Up.
No.
Not your Pat Benatar All Fired Up.
Yes.
There you go.
That one, yes.
There you go. This song is cool, and it's got a relentless pace to it. It would have fit in like a charm. Take out Wild Nights, Hot Crazy Days, put in All Fired Up. This album gets a better ranking, in my opinion. I'm going to give this a 6 because there are still songs on here that I love to this day. Locked In, Reckless, Out in the Cold, Turbo Lover. But there's just 2 songs I hear on here that I don't need to hear again. And it was really hard to listen to Parental Guidance this week when I was listening to this album again. Yeah. But there is a lot to like on it. I give it a 6. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Wow. I think that's the lowest. I think that's the lowest ranking we've had on this series so far. So
I'd go 8 myself, honestly.
Okay.
I'd go 8 because I can really I without getting into how old are you, I think I was maybe more of that generation that would have.
We're around the same age.
Okay.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I think I'm a year older. I'm going to be 53 next.
Okay, so yeah,
next month.
There's only a year's difference. I guess it was
Okay.
just enough difference though. That parental guidance kind of became more my song. Although I acknowledged I was listening to it in the car today and it was very contrived listening to him talking about, you always chew me out because I stay out late. And I'm like, Rob, nobody's chewing you out, buddy. You're like 30 or however old he is when he's
You would have
recording
been
this song.
35 at that point.
Right. So nobody's chewing him out. Nobody's barking at him from a three-piece suit saying, do your homework. And I wish I'd said something about Reckless as well, because yeah, it's one of my favorite songs. It was supposed to be in Top Gun, apparently.
Well, before we go that, what a creative lyric here we had in parental guidance. You keep screaming at me to turn the music low, but if you keep on screaming, you'll make me deaf, More of a paraphrase there at the beginning, but you know what I mean.
Exactly.
It is, all right, I'll give him points for that. You'll make me deaf if you keep screaming. Like, not bad.
Yeah, you gotta
I
love
can't help
that.
but smile when I hear it.
Very true.
I will say that at least Rob had a little bit of snottiness in his delivery. He's really throwing on that British accent. And you'd make me deaf,
Yeah.
So
Like
there was
Mick
that little
Jagger.
bit of punky snottiness there coming from the accent that I
And more
appreciate.
Johnny Rotten there.
A little bit, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, if anybody's looking for any lyrical depthness in this episode from me personally, you ain't gonna get it, because
Right.
there's no reason to go deep into this one. I made the mistake of thinking Jawbreaker was a little bit deeper than what it really was, but then I started reading through Rob's book. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, so that's really what I was right. My gut told me that's really what the song was about, not what I eventually said. So yeah. So okay, so this time I'm not going that deep with these lyrics because there's nothing deep to go into here. But I'll tell you what, as an 11th grader hearing this album, now my friends Mike and Dave, they heard stuff from this first. They heard it. We had a college station. I think it was out in Bethlehem, that they had a metal show 1 or 2 nights a week, and they played, I believe it was Turbo Lover, and I missed it that night. And they were like, "Oh God, it's all these guitar synthesizers and all that crap." Okay, what song do I get to hear first? Reckless. I'm like, you guys are nuts. There wasn't a guitar synthesizer to be found on that song. That was an awesome song. It's probably why I like it so much, because then I heard the rest of the album. I go, okay, now I get what you guys said. But let's just talk about that intro to Turbo Lover. Boy, does that just not suck you in? No pun intended. But it just brings you right in. And that Dave's driving beat. Okay, yeah, it's heavily processed, it's gated, it's electronic, it's whatever you want to call it, and but there's a driving thing that goes with it. You feel a buildup throughout this entire song, and I think what finally blows the when the buildup finally blows, we shot off and explode, I think was when that's when it finally hits. That's when it finally lets loose. It's like, the tension's been released. Great solo. I just love everything about it. I love it's mostly Glenn on this one. And it's just, again, it's just so much good stuff here. Um, Probably not my favorite song on the album, but pretty darn close. Locked In, again, nothing I need to say about this song. Typical 80s vibe with the lyrics, with the whole love thing. And, I'm locked inside your love. Well, yeah, nothing I need to say more about that. Yeah, the video was pretty goofy. I do remember that. Um, Private Property. Okay, I kind of look at this as um, keep your dirty hands off me. Well, that's saying, hey, I'm already taken, kind of thing. That's kind of the vibe I get. It was never one of my favorites back in the day, I think I tended to fast forward the tape a little bit. And then I get to parental guidance, and I think I fast forwarded it some more. I didn't really care for the song. It was okay. It's still not one of my favorites. Um, again, I kind of get what they were saying. I just wish the song was I just wish the song was more Judas Priest. It just sounds this to me. The song always sound to me. Parental Guidance always sounded a little wimpy when it comes to Judas Priest. It just
Yeah.
doesn't have that drive. It sounded commercial. It sounded kind of weak. So it didn't. That's kind of why I didn't appreciate the song. I can appreciate a little bit of the lyrical content where they were going, but it just wasn't one of my favorites. Rock You All Around the World. We have talked about the anthems that Judas Priest has already done by this point. Take on the World, United, defend heavy duty defenders of the faith. Just another anthem here. Is it one of my favorites of them? Nah, not really. Maybe a little bit more than United, but I think I would probably put Take on the World or even Heavy Duty a little bit more than this one. Um, Out in the Cold, love that song. Is always was another one of my favorites. Again, that feel of abandonment that Rob likes to sing about, and when it comes to relationships, almost is kind of what I get from that song. But again, everything's just so lyrical in the playing and the synth work. Everything just works so well in this song. Again, one of my favorites. Uh, I can't even, I want to make sure I'm getting the title right. Wild Nights, Hot and Crazy Days. That's how much I don't even care for the song. I tend to skip it. It was always a CD and tape skipper for me. Um, it's bad when I can't even remember the actual name of the song, and I had to look at it just to make sure I get the title right. It's just, yeah, it probably, I think as I was reading in Rob and KK's books, um, it definitely describes their time in Nassau, because I think that's where really the influence came from. Hot for Love, you really think it's going to be like another Turbo Lover. It's got this kind of there's this there's this kind of a danger gripping feel in the beginning, and then the lyrics start, and then it's just kind of loses it for me. So it's like, it's okay. Not one of my absolute favorites of this album. But then we get to Reckless, Way Out of Hand, a Real Survivor, Reckless, coming to Gale Force 10. I don't know. There was so much about this song that I just absolutely adored. Yeah, they wanted it for Top Gun, and they said, nah, this is going to be a flop. Boy, were they wrong.
Imagine what this would have
Man,
done.
if I think as Rob or KK put it, if they had got maybe a little more information, if a little bit more, I think they just got general information when it came to the song or it came to the movie. And so they just passed it by thinking, this is going to be nothing. Boy, were they both mistaken. But I love Reckless. You get the dual harmonies of KK and Glenn here. Glenn takes the main solo. Just an absolute, I don't know. I just I related this to this song so much. This is probably why it's like a top 5 pre-song for me. I just absolutely adore this song. One of, my probably my favorite album closer by the band. Um, I'm probably going to split the difference between you guys and go probably about a 7 on this one. A little nicer than your 6, but not quite as strong as Mike's 8. But there's certain songs that have very, very strong memories. There's Turbo Lover has some very interesting memories, which I'm not going to talk about here. Nobody needs to hear those stories. But anyway, but Reckless, and Out in the Cold, they both all 3 of those songs just have a lot of very strong thoughts and memories with me with that. So they will always carry me there. But yeah, the rest of the album, even in '86, I wasn't a huge fan about. So but I still played what I played, and skipped what I skipped. So that's where I go from there. So So,
Very
Mike,
good.
I know you didn't really kind of talk too many about any of the other songs. So, I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to say about some of the other songs on Turbo.
Yeah, that's me being a rookie and forgetting the format of how the show works.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's funny you guys are so into Locked In because I that one never really hit me. But I loved how the two music videos went together sequentially, and they're rescuing Rob from this fortress of women. Which the irony now is hilarious.
Yeah.
But Rob was really good at hamming it up in that video. There's this one bit where he's kind of like shrugging his shoulders, like what the hell's going on. I loved the motorcycle motif that was going on in those videos. Um, Unlike you, I was very enthused with some of this material. It was more aimed at my just starting out in high school vibe. But Rocky All Around the World, I still feel that song is one of the weakest on the album. I recognize the need for a fast rocker after a lot of stuff that wasn't so fast, but the lyrics are just they're kind of cringe.
Yeah.
I don't think the chorus really hits. Rock you all around the world, we're gonna rock you, we're gonna rock you. It doesn't really hit for me. And I get, again, they're going for that whole United anthem deal, which again, that's a Judas Priest side one closing technique.
Yeah.
Out in the Cold is definitely a highlight of this album. I think it can only be done as it was done with the synths. Um, it's so epic. And you're not expecting Priest to come out with a ballad on this album necessarily. After the last few albums, anyway, you're not expecting them to come out with a ballad and being the set opener on tour. Like that was crazy, and it worked. It worked. That whole build up. This album's all about build up. You guys talked about Turbo and how the first song on the album just kind of slowly builds. The intro builds, then the song begins, and then the song itself builds until, as John said, we shout out and explode, and then the guitar solo comes in. And then Rock You All Around the World, we go into Out in the Cold on side 2, and again it's a build, and very emotional, brilliant song. Wild Nights, Hot and Crazy Days is the summer party rocker, and although I never cared for it at the time, I kind of like it now. It's when I want to listen to Van Halen 5150 and Slippery When Wet by Bon Jovi, I can dovetail this song in there and it fits that vibe.
Yeah, that's true.
Hot for Love is kind of okay. Kind of okay. I have a bootleg of them playing it live. They must have played it live a couple of times on tour. Definitely not a highlight, but Reckless is the outro that we needed. And it's just Rob Halford, he had a way back then of teaching me words. I had to look up what the word dynamo meant for me to understand the lyrics, and I had to look up what Gale Force 10 meant because I didn't understand that reference. So here's young me, and Rob Halford is teaching me English, which is so funny. But I just think that this song, it has something to it, that riff, and the guitar solos. They're so memorable on this album. They're so memorable. And Reckless is one of the absolute best guitar solos on this album. I can hum it in my head right now, and that just tells you everything you need to know about a really well-written KK and Glenn guitar solo. Yeah, so again, I would go 8 out of 8, or 8 out of 10, sorry, but I was of that age group that was susceptible to what they were doing. They were reaching for that, and in my case, they sunk the hooks in and dragged me along, and I was a more enthusiastic Judas Priest fan after Turbo than I was beforehand.
Okay.
Beforehand, it was kind of like me absorbing this music from my older friends, and now, oh crap, I lost my camera. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yep.
Hang on. There we go. And then this was my Priest. My friends had their older brother style Priest, and then this one represented me.
Yeah.
And that's my perspective on it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we do have some differing perspectives on this.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
thing that's so great about this band is they have a catalog that's so rich and varied and long that what your favorite albums would be depends on when you came in. I mean, because there's probably a decent amount of people out there that really love Turbo. And I know, like, just it depends when you went in, or maybe you went in one album like I did and then worked your way back and then you found something you might have liked a little more. I think a lot of Judas Priest fans are like that. But yes, I mean, as we go through this series, we talk about some of these 90s albums. I know just from some conversations we'd have off air, there's a lot of people who like those 90s albums. The albums with Ripper.
Well,
Like,
it's important to mention, John, that these songs were kind of dropped rapidly from the set when Priest knew that they had to heavy up or sink or swim, basically. So,
yes,
Turbo Lover was dropped, but it came back in the 90s during the Ripper Owens years. And it was kind of like there was that era when it was like, should we do this 80s song in our set? Let's go for it. And the fans loved it. And that's when you knew there was some things here that did hang on and did hook people in.
absolutely. It's
Yep.
true. And I'll be getting into that when we talk about the tour dates.
Yeah, I think the only thing I want to add, I'm going to add about the lyrical content. Rob has kind of gone on record saying he was at the height of his alcoholism at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and he knew he needed to get cleaned up, and I think he blames his alcoholism for why the lyrics were so bad on this album, and of course he talks about January 5th, 1986. That was when he said, "Okay, I've got to clean up. I've got to get clean and I've got to get straightened out." I was reading through some of that stuff in his book this morning, and my God, I needed to go to church just to get my brain washed of a lot of the stuff I was reading in that point, because this is a lot of talking, this is Rob's being very vivid in his description of his love life, if you want to call it that.
Right.
So that's, you didn't really TMI, Rob. I just wanted to just put that out there, a little TMI. But then the whole drinking thing and just everything that went on with that, I'm just like, God bless you, Rob, for being sober all these years. That's a good thing. But yeah, I think he blames that. But anyway, yeah. So go ahead, John. Let's talk about the tour, the Fuel for
Okay.
Life tour.
Fuel for life. Like NWO for life, fuel for life. Now, a lot of these songs from this album got dropped after the Turbo tour. But as Mike has pointed out, Turbo Lover came back on the tour and part of their set list, and it's their 11th most played song live. By far the most played song off of Turbo. The number 2 one, and it's a distant second, tied with Eat Me Alive at number 58, is Out in the Cold. And that's only because they brought it back on the second leg of the Firepower tour in 2019. Locked In, Private Property, Parental Guidance, Rock You All Around the World, and Hot for Love were all played on the Turbo tour. They dropped Hot for Love pretty quick. The rest of them stayed for the tour. They never played them again. Reckless and Wild Nights, Hot Crazy Days were never played live. Now, as for the tour, they did 103 dates in 86. And no, I'm not going to go over 103. I'm just going to give you the highlights. The first show was at Tingley Coliseum in Albuquerque, New Mexico on May 2nd, 1986. Openers, Raven and Dawkins. And Dawkins would continue to be on this first leg of the tour. I'm not sure about Raven. I don't know. Maybe they're only listed on this first date. I didn't see them on any others. Maybe I just missed it. But Selland Arena in Fresno, California, 2 dates at the LA Sports Arena, in LA, California, Cal Expo Amphitheater, Sacramento, California, Kiel Auditorium, St. Louis, Missouri, Rosemont Horizon, Rosemont, Illinois. Hello, Joe B. Richfield Coliseum, Richfield, Ohio, Spectrum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum, Uniondale, New York. Hello, Jack Toledano. Hampton Coliseum, Hampton, Virginia, Frank Irwin Center, Austin, Texas. Lloyd Noble Center, Norman, Oklahoma. Isn't that where Dr. Det Steve Williams is from?
I think he was from Norman,
Yeah.
Oklahoma. I think so.
Yep, I believe so. Yes. And then we go to Canada, where they play Pacific Coliseum, Vancouver, British Columbia, Winnipeg Arena, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Ottawa Civic Center, Ottawa, Ontario. There were a few other dates as well. And on these dates, now this is going to sound weird. Bon Jovi was the opener before Slippery When Wet was released. Think about that to what would happen by the end of 1986. They were opening, they were only playing like a handful of songs, a few from the unreleased, at that time, Slippery When Wet album. Then they come back to the US, and Crocus is the opener with the abysmal Change of Address album. I'm sorry, that album is terrible. It may, you know, I said some things about Turbo that weren't very complimentary. Turbo's Led Zeppelin 4 compared to that. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Anyway, when they came back in to America, they played the RPI Fieldhouse in Troy, New York, where 3 years later, Ric Flair and Terry Funk would chop the shit out of each other in an I Quit match on Clash of Champions 9.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember that match too, actually.
Yeah, that match is awesome. I know I'm throwing a little maybe too much wrestling thing in. Okay. All right. I had to throw it in. No, Civic Arena, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then he went back to the Rosemont Horizon in Rosemont, Illinois. Brown County Veterans Memorial Arena in Ashwaubenon, Wisconsin, Peoria Civic Center, Peoria, Illinois, Mississippi Coast Coliseum, Biloxi, Mississippi. Then he went back to Canada. CNA Grandstand, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Crocus opened, and this is where they recorded the Alive and Screaming live album that came out in late 86.
Ah, okay.
And that was on August 31. And then they would go to Europe, where the opening band was Warlock for Truest Steel. They played in Zwolle, Netherlands, Offenbach am Main, Germany, Madrid, Spain. They also had dates in Switzerland, Belgium, France, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland. And then they'd play the following cities in Japan: Yokohama, Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, and Fukuoka. And their last date would be on December 16 at the Neil S. Blaisdell Concert Hall in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Wow.
Now, on this tour, this is nearly all 80s Priest at this point in the set list. The only 3 tracks that represented the 70s were Hellbent for Leather, Victim of Changes, and Green Man Lishi with the 2-prong crown. So there you go.
Doro Passion Warlock.
Yeah.
Truest Steel was my introduction to Warlock, and I have never been the same since. I love Truest Steel. That was a wonderful album. But yeah.
Excellent.
And of course the album that John and I are going to talk about next week, Priest Live, was recorded in Dallas and Atlanta, Georgia. So so we have we'll be talking more about that. But yeah, that would have been it's an interesting show if when you look at this set, and I'll just kind of briefly mention what's on this. There's a few extra tracks that's on this full set that didn't make it onto this. You know, this the 70s tracks that you mentioned did not make it. Yeah, it's all the 80s stuff here. So we'll probably I think we'll just break more of that down next week. I'll save it for that. But Mike Ladano, we just did a show about point of entry into metal, And let's see, you got your next big thing coming up is I believe your Good Friday show, I think, correct?
That's right. Jex Russell and I, we're going to do an afternoon show. It's kind of a tradition that we do on Good Friday. And this year I let him pick the topic, and we're doing our top 5 albums from our birth years. So for him, 1985, for me, 1972. There'll be 2 completely different lists, and I'm struggling. And that's all I will say about that for now. You'll have to tune in on Good Friday to see.
When Jack said born in 1985, I asked him what month, and he told me it was like October or something like that. He's like, and I'm like, dude, I have 2 concert shirts that are older than you.
Yep. My Judas Priest shirt is older than him.
My Iron Maiden and my Motley Crue shirts are older than him. The Iron Maiden's one's not in good as shape as the Motley Crue one is still, but that's probably because I didn't wear that one as much as the Iron Maiden one. But
I
God
own
bless you guys
albums
for-
here that I've owned longer than Jex has been alive.
Wow. God bless you guys for still having those concert shirts from your first concerts. I can't say that.
Mine was just a shirt that I bought at a store, but it was my first rock shirt, my first Judas Priest shirt, and it's in my parents' basement, and
Okay.
it's teeny tiny.
Yeah, that's kind of how my Motley Crue, and I mean, I can still wear them, but it's not. Yeah, they've shrunk a lot over the years. I wish I still had the concert, my shirt from my first concert. That went away. I remember getting rid of shirts a lot over the years, and and it just, but like tour shirts and stuff like that I got at shows, certain ones that I was like, no, I can't get rid of that. But some I think some I eventually did, but yeah. And then what else is down the pike for you, Mike? Anything else new and weird and strange we should be looking out for?
I'm doing some recordings in the near future. I'll be working with Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation, and I will be doing a recording with Darcy Briggs, who's rather new on the YouTube scene. And I think that's about all that I have in concrete. There are other ones that I'm working on, but they're not scheduled yet.
Okay. All right. And like I said, I'm gonna link that Friday show that we did. I'll link that in the description, so y'all can sit back with some popcorn and listen to us tell some stories of how we got into metal and what our gateway was, and the crazy bridges that goes along. What's that one meme that they always come out with the guy with the mustache, and he's looking at this thing, and it's like all these things, but they're like written, there's like lines everywhere. And he looks frayed out of his mind. And I can't think of what show that's from, but if you see the meme, you know what I'm talking about. I just can't think of what the show is from, but that's kind of how some of our bridges get going after a while. John, what else do we have cooking on the pipeline?
And if you want to see more of Mike Ladano's work, check out Down for the Count, the Y&T album review, written by our friend Tim Derling. There you go. Mike's pointing at it.
Yeah.
We all got a
John
copy.
has it too.
We all got a copy.
Yes. Mike has a lot of great thoughts on the albums that he talked about by Y&T in here. So definitely pick this up. You can get this at Amazon on demand.
Yep.
So
it has in a couple of days.
That's true. If you have Prime shipping, certainly. And Y&T series on Tim Derling's channel, Tim's Vinyl Confessions, that's still going on. And I am Tim's co-captain on that series. So the Contagious show, the spotlighting that album from 1987, that will air this week. And it's going to it will debut on Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which will be 2 days before this comes out on My Music Corner. So we have that going on. We're still we'll be doing this Judas Priest series for a while. We got a lot of great guests coming on. And yeah, and I'm all over the place, guys. Y'all know where I'm at. So there you go.
He really is. You see, I tell you what, it's awesome to see him. Just he can plug into this. He's plugging into Y&T. They tried to plug him in with a Linda Ronstadt show, and I guess that fell through or something. But
it didn't fall through. It got postponed.
Okay.
Grant and I are gonna do that on March 27th.
Okay. All right. All right. I didn't know what the when that was coming up, but I
Yeah.
mean,
That's another one I need to plug is I've got a recording coming up with Grant for Grant's Rock Warehouse. We're going to be doing the Canadian rock quintet Kickaxe.
Oh,
cool.
nice.
Yeah,
That's cool.
that'll be
Yeah,
fun.
that's a band that nobody talks about, or not enough people talk about. Unless you're Chris Jericho. I know he loves Kick Axe, but
They they opened for Priest on the Defenders tour
that's
Oh,
for
true.
the
there you go.
Vices album.
That's
There you
true.
go.
That's right.
That's true. But yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, John can just plug. You can, I mean, he can plug in just about anywhere. I
He
mean,
just did. He just plugged into the Kickaxe.
yeah,
That we need to get.
exactly. So, I mean, John, you would
Thank you.
we recorded a show, or I recorded a show with Bicycle Legs, and we just did this one yesterday. It'll probably drop in a week or two, and it's talking about some of our favorite instrumental albums.
Oh, nice.
Okay, and Daniel was pretty specific. It had to be a strict instrumental. I mean, yeah, you could have maybe some oohs and ahs, but for the most part, it had to be a pretty much a straight instrumental album. So certain ones kind of got the boot for me because I'm like, well, can't include that because there's a little vocal line here and there, or there's
Passion
this
and Warfare. Would
passion
that
and
be
warfare.
I was
disqualified?
thinking about
Yes,
that.
passion and warfare would be disqualified because you have the Pledge of Allegiance, you got the audiences listening, you got
Walking a
uh
fine line between pagan and
and
Christian.
Christian. Yes, you have that. You have all there's a lot of stuff like that throughout, all sprinkled throughout the album.
Yeah.
The Belarus, whatever that is.
Right. La Ballerina de la
Yeah,
Belarus. This is
yeah,
Greasy Kid stuff, mixed 256.
exactly. So that got the boot. Tubular Bells gets the boot because
Mm,
you have the Master of Ceremonies,
okay.
the
That's true.
speaking thing. And then part two, of course, you have what I think in the original version it's the Piltdown Man, but I think in the 2003 re-record he calls it Cavemen. So if you're familiar with the Tubular Bells thing from Mike Oldfield, you'll know what I'm talking about. So that's kind of disqualified, even though he's not really saying words in that cavemen part.
That'll be a challenging list. I'll look forward to checking that show out for
Oh,
sure.
this was a
Absolutely.
wonderful, wonderful show. Oh my gosh. There wasn't a repeat CD anywhere.
Nice.
Cool.
Except for maybe one, but there was enough backups. Everybody had enough backups. But I'll tell you what, I'm not going to give much more away. When it comes out, you will love this show. It's a wonderful, wonderful show. And I think, John, I bet you could probably have plugged three easily. You could probably have found three that you could have plugged easily.
Well, I listen to a lot of jazz music, so yeah.
Uh,
And
then
nearly
you
all
would
the
have fit.
jazz
Then you would have
that
fit
I
in
own is
just
in my
wonderfully.
yeah.
You would have fit in just wonderfully with this one because there was a lot of
Cool.
that. So
Nice.
yeah, not a shredder to be found. Not a
Oh,
metal shredder to be found. No
wow,
Jason
that
Beckers,
surprises
no
me.
no Jason Beckers, no Tony McAlpines, no Gary
Vinnie Moore.
Finney Moore and Marty Friedman, none of that stuff. None of those
wow.
shrapnel guys. I think there was
Richie Kotzen would make my list, spoiler alert. So
sure he
that's
would.
cool. I'm looking forward to checking out this show.
That's going to be a good show.
Cool.
So
Nice.
that'll be good. So there you go. So we got lots of good stuff here. Mike, thank you for joining us on the Year of the
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Priest
Mike.
for the Turbo episode. This was awesome. It's always wonderful having you on here.
Thank you.
We love having you a part of it. So again, look for John either in writing or in videos. He's all over the place, and it's a great. He just everywhere he goes, you know you're going to get some quality content. And then you just got me, who's I'm just a humble little host who happens to be in who just happened to contribute a little bit to this book. So
Yeah.
that Martin Popoff did. So there you go. Like, share, subscribe. You know all the lingo. Comments, whatever you guys need to do. Thank you for watching this thing. A lot of y'all are putting in some great comments here. So just want to thank you for that. So for John the Music Nut, for Mike Ladano, grab a stack of rock. Please, if you have not checked out Mike's channel, do so. It's linked in there. Go to it.
Thank you.
Do it. Do it now.
Absolutely.
Right now. Okay. Anyway. Thank you all. Rock forever. We'll see you next week.